Okay, so I'm Eddie, and I'm going to be going over the Chinese policy, Suzhi Jiaoyu quality education, which is a policy in China. So today I'm going to be talking about three different things. The first thing is describing the policy and law, and the historical and current perspectives of the law. And I'm going to be kind of connecting those together because they overlap. And then finally, I'm going to talk about how the policy affects schools in general. So first, let's describe the policy. So before the quality education took place, China was a test-based education system, and the policy addressed this test-based education, known as Yingxi Jiaoyu. And a part of that was because they had the test-based education because it was highly integrated in society for thousands of years. And essentially, the test was a stepping stone to status and power. So if you did well on the test, then you could essentially, rank up and work for the government, which meant that you were an elite person in the government that was close to the emperor and had power. So this test was how you did it. Now, for quality education, the quality education policy, based upon critiques from parents, teachers, and education specialists, they in the 90s they were questioning the competence, quality, and the essential characteristics of students. Are our students quality students when they graduate? And essentially, they thought that they were not at that time. And China has grown exponentially over several decades, and in order to continue to sustain its trajectory for modernization, specifically in its workforce, there needed to be a change in the education because the test-based education was not providing quality people in its workforce. So the central government, essentially instituted the quality education policy, and there were many examples of success, specifically in the urban cities such as Beijing and Shanghai. However, the way that this policy affects schools in general is different. Now, some schools, specifically in the urban areas, did quite well, and others didn't do as well. And part of that is because there were a lack of resources. There's still a focus on examinations in China, and there is a bit of inequality. So, for example, there's a lot of where the resources are in the big cities like Shanghai and Beijing. But if you didn't attend a school in those cities, it was very difficult for you to actually have the resources. As quality education means you need more contact with the teachers, and you can't have quality contact with the teachers in a class size of 100 students, so 150 students. So they needed to dramatically reduce that size, requiring more teachers. In some places, essentially didn't have those resources. Now, coming back in today, examinations, unfortunately, are still the way that schools are evaluated. So what this means is that teachers essentially teach based upon the tests versus teaching, based upon quality of the individual. In addition to that, at my school, there is still a strong focus on tests and examinations. Essentially, rote memorization. My students have to take 15 classes a week, and essentially memorizing stuff becomes easier than actually reading and learning critically, which takes a lot of time. Which means students have long school days. My students are in school from 7:30 in the morning to 9 at night, which includes study hall. And teacher turnover. Teachers become exhausted because they have to stay there all the time. That requires teachers to put in more time, especially if there are really large class sizes. So essentially, China's working towards quality education to promote its economic development. However, it is difficult to institute as there are long-standing traditions, such as focusing on tests and lack of resources, and teachers in schools are not quite prepared for the and may face the traditional methods of teaching anyways. These are my citations. Hopefully you found this informative. Thank you for watching.